Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Krishna Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Holy Appearance Day of Advaita Charya Prabhu Ki Jai. Advaita Charya Prabhu Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Hare Krishna. Welcome, dear devotees, to this very auspicious day of Sri Advaita Acharya's appearance day. Hare Krishna Jai Advaita Acharya, or Sri Advaita Acharya Ki Jai. Also auspicious is we'd like to welcome a new member to our community, Melissa. If you'd raise your hand, welcome Melissa. Melissa's staying at Krishna House. She comes from Tucson, Arizona. So if you have a chance, please come and welcome her to the community and say hi. Hare Krishna. Krishna Dumna Prabhu will give you Srimad Bhagavatam class today. And Hare Krishna.
Do you have the clicker? Okay. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijanavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We can read all together. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyutama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. For my respectful obeisances unto him. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. My name is Drishtadumna Das. Today we're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. We are on the final chapter, chapter 33, called Activities of Kapila. And so, this is the second to last class before we finish the canto. Does anyone know kind of who's been the main protagonist of the third canto for a large chunk of it so far? Kapila, but also, debatably, someone has gotten even a little more screen time than Kapila. Devahuti. So this class is going to be talking about, it's going to be kind of closing the book on Devahuti's story. We're going to see how she attains perfection, how she goes back to Godhead. So it should be very exciting for us to hear. We've been following Devahuti for so many chapters. First she gets married to Kardama Muni, and then they practice austerities together, and then she has her son Kapila. She asks Kapila these questions, and for several chapters Kapila Deva is instructing her. And now we get to finally see kind of the end of the hero's journey where she's going back to Godhead. So, very exciting. We're all very, at least devotees should be very excited to hear about other devotees going back to Godhead. And even in this world, when senior devotees are leaving their bodies or going back to Godhead, it's like a very glorious thing, and you almost want to be there so that you can see it, you can hear about it. So we're going to go to text 13, and if someone can read text 13, please. Thank you.
As instructed by her son, Devahuti also began to practice bhakti yoga in that very ashram. She practiced samadhi in the house of Kardamuni, which was so beautiful decorated with flowers that it was considered the flower crown of the river Sarasvati.
Okay, so if we remember from many chapters ago, Kapila Dev is instructing Devahuti, but before that, Kardama Muni creates this amazing, magnificent palace. And Devahuti's been living in that palace for the past few chapters, and Kapila Dev is instructing her. But when she renounces, when she takes Vanaprastha, she actually doesn't leave home. It's said by Srila Prabhupada in the purport that the woman should always be sheltered. So she's still staying at home, but that's what makes this so interesting, is that she's living in this massive palace surrounded by all these servants and beautiful gardens. We're going to hear a description, but she's going to show how detached she is from all of it. She's going to show how you can become self-realized in any situation, even in the most opulent palace that she's living in. All right, text 14.
She began to bathe 3 times daily, and thus her curling black hair gradually became gray. Due to austerity, her body gradually became thin, and she wore old garments.
All right, so Prabhupada in the purport, he makes this very nice point that Devahuti, she's now taken to renounce life and she's practicing austerities. But the reason why she's able to practice these austerities is because during her previous stages of life, during her grihastha life, she did so many austerities. We shouldn't really have this mindset that, once I'm 50 years old, then I'm gonna start doing austerities. Then I'm gonna start being Krishna conscious. It's kind of it's a little bit of a, what's it called? It's a thing where people say, oh, why are you practicing spiritual life while you're young? You should wait till you're older. But Devahuti is showing this example that she's able to do these amazing austerities because she's practiced her whole life. So that's one of the keys that we're going to see in how to, go back to Godhead like Devahuti is it takes a lifetime of service, a lifetime of practice in these austerities and in this Krishna consciousness. Text 15, please.
The home and household paraphernalia of Cardamom, who was one of the Prajapatis, was developed in such a way, by dint of his mystic powers of austerity and yoga, that his opulence was sometimes envied by those who travel in outer space in airplanes.
All right. Again, the household of Cardamom Muni is very opulent. Shri.
The opulence of the household of Cardamom Muni is described herein. The bed seats and mattresses were all as white as the foam of milk. The chairs and benches were made of ivory and were covered by cloths of lace with golden filigree, and the couches were made of gold and had very soft pillows.
Thank you. Next text.
Text 17. The walls of the house were made of first-class marble, decorated with valuable jewels. There was no need of light, for the household was illuminated by the rays of these jewels. The female members of the household were all amply decorated with jewelry.
So you can kind of also visualize these descriptions. We can see the beautiful couches, which are white like the foam of milk, and just this amazing palace.
The compound of the main household was surrounded by beautiful gardens with sweet, fragrant flowers and many trees which produced fresh fruit and were tall and beautiful. The attraction of such gardens was that singing birds would sit on the trees, and their chanting voices, as well as the humming sound of the bees, made the whole atmosphere as pleasing as possible.
When Devahuti would enter that lovely garden to take her bath in the pond filled with lotus flowers, the associates of the denizens of heaven, the Gandharvas, would sing about Kardama's glorious household life. Her great husband Kardama gave her all protection at all times.
Although her position was unique from all points of view, saintly Devahuti, in spite of all her possessions, which were envied even by the ladies of the heavenly planets, gave up all such comforts. She was only sorry that her great son was separated from her.
All right, Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about how she's showing this detachment, but it seems that, she's attached to her son. But what's the case here? Who's her son? Her son is God. So this is not an ordinary attachment. This attachment is born of high spiritual power, not of sentimentalism. So, next text.
Devahuti's husband had already left home and accepted the renounced order of life. And then her only son, Kapila, left home. Although she knew all the truths of life and death, and although her heart was cleansed of all dirt, she was very aggrieved at the loss of her son, just as a cow is affected when her calf dies.
Next text.
O Vidura, that's always meditating upon her son, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila Dev. She very soon became attached to her nicely decorated home.
Jai.
Thereafter, having heard with great eagerness and in all detail from her son, Kapila the eternally smiling personality of Godhead, Devahuti began to meditate constantly upon the Vishnu form of the Supreme Lord.
Okay, so we're hearing, what was she doing in that ashram? She was meditating on her son. She was meditating on Kapila Dev. And that's kind of the secret as to how she's able to be so detached, is because all she's thinking about is her son. Next text, Nandabraj.
Thereafter, having heard with great eagerness and all detail from her...
Sorry, I think we already read that.
I thought so too. She did so with serious engagement in devotional service. Because she was strong in renunciation, she accepted only the necessities of the body. She became situated in knowledge due to realization of the absolute truth. Her heart became purified. She became fully absorbed in meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all misgivings due to the modes of material nature disappeared.
Okay, yeah, so again, all misgivings of the modes of material nature disappeared. You want to be? No, there's a few more. Yeah.
Her mind became completely engaged in the Supreme Lord, and she automatically realized the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. As a Brahman realized soul, she was freed from the designations of the materialistic concept of life. Thus, all material pangs disappeared, and she attained transcendental bliss.
Actually, I think it might be better we first do our focus verse, which is 26, and then we go on to see what happens to Devahuti. So, all right. This is 3:33:26. Brahmanyavastita matir Bhagavatyatma samshraye Nivrita jivapan patitvat Shina kleshapta nivriti Brahmanyavastita matir Bhagavatyatma samshraye Nivrita jivapatitvat Krishna kleshapta nivriti. Please chant. Brahmanyavastita matir Bhagavatyatma samshraye Nivrita jivapatita Krishna kleshapta nivriti. Oh, sorry. Any more? Haley? Anyone else? Okay. Word for word. Brahmani in Brahman. Avastita, situated. Mati, her mind. Bhagavati, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Atma Samshaye, residing in all living entities. Nivrita, freed. Jiva, of the Jiva soul. Apatitvat, from the unfortunate condition. Kshina, disappeared. Klesha, material pangs. Apta, attained. Nivriti, mental bliss. Translation: her mind became completely engaged in the Supreme Lord, and she automatically realized the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. As a Brahman-realized soul, she was freed from the designations of the materialistic concept of life. Thus, all material pangs disappeared, and she attained transcendental bliss. Can someone please read the first paragraph of the purport? This is a very long purport, so we'll break it up.
The previous verse states that Devahuti was already conversant with the Absolute Truth. It may be questioned why she was meditating. The explanation is that when one theoretically discusses the Absolute Truth, he becomes situated in the impersonal concept of the Absolute Truth. Similarly, when one seriously discusses the subject matter of the form, qualities, pastimes, and entourage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes situated in meditation on Him. If one has complete knowledge of the Supreme Lord, the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman is automatically realized. The Absolute Truth is realized by the knower according to three different angles of vision, namely impersonal Brahman, localized Supersoul, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, if one is situated in knowledge of the Supreme Person, this implies that one is already situated in the concept of the Supersoul and impersonal Brahman.
Okay, try. Next paragraph.
In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Brahma Bhutta Parasanatma. This means that unless one is freed from the material entanglement and situated in Brahman, there is no question of entering into the understanding of devotional service or engaging in Krishna consciousness. One who is engaged in devotional service to Krishna is understood to be already realized in the Brahman concept of life because transcendental knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead includes knowledge of Brahman. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Brahmano hi pratishtanam. The concept of the personality of Godhead does not depend on Brahman. The Vishnu Purana also confirms that one who has taken shelter of the all-auspicious Supreme Lord is already situated in the understanding of Brahman. In other words, one who is a Vaishnava is already a Brahmana.
All right.
Another significant point of this verse is that one has to observe the prescribed rules and regulations, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Yuktahara Viharasya. When one engages in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, he still has to eat, sleep, defend, and mate, because these are necessities of the body. But he performs such activities in a regulated way. He has to eat Krishna Prasad. He has to sleep according to regulated principles. The principle is to reduce the duration of sleep and to reduce eating, taking only what is needed to keep the body fit. In short, the goal of spiritual advancement, not sense gratification. Similarly, sex life must be reduced. Sex life is meant only for begetting Krishna-conscious children. Otherwise, there is no necessity for sex life. Nothing is prohibited, but everything is made yukta, regulated, with the higher purpose always in mind. By following all these rules and regulations of living, one becomes purified and all misconceptions due to ignorance become nil. It is specifically mentioned here that the causes of material entanglement are completely vanquished.
Sanskrit statement, anartha nivritti, indicates that this body is unwanted. We are spirit soul, and there was never any need of the material body. But because we wanted to enjoy the material body, we have this body through the material energy under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As soon as we are reestablished in our original position of servitorship to the Supreme Lord, we begin to forget the necessities of the body, and at last we forget the body. Sometimes in a dream we get a particular type of body with which to work in the dream. I may dream that I'm flying in the sky, or that I've gone into the forest or some unknown place. But as soon as I'm awake, I forget all these bodies. Similarly, when one is Krishna conscious, fully devoted, he forgets all his changes of body. We are always changing bodies, beginning at birth, from the womb of our mother. But when we are awakened to Krishna consciousness, we forget all these bodies. The bodily necessities become secondary, for the primary necessity is the engagement of the soul in real spiritual life. The activities of devotional service and full Krishna consciousness are the cause of our being situated in transcendence.
The
words Bhagavat-yatma samshraya denote the personality of Godhead as the supreme soul, or the soul of everyone. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bijam mam sarvabhutanam, I am the seed of all entities. By taking shelter of the Supreme Being by the process of devotional service, one becomes fully situated in the concept of the personality of Godhead. As described by Kapila, Madguna Shruti Matrena, one who is fully Krishna conscious, situated in the personality of Godhead, is immediately saturated with love of God as soon as he hears about the transcendental qualities of the Lord.
All right, a few more paragraphs.
Devahuti was fully instructed by her son, Kapila Dev, and how to concentrate her mind on the Vishnu form in full detail. Following the instructions of her son in the matter of devotional service, she contemplated the form of the Lord within herself with great devotional love. That is the perfection of Brahman realization, or the mystic yoga system, or devotional service. At the ultimate issue, when one is fully absorbed in thought of the Supreme Lord and meditates on him constantly, that is the highest perfection. Bhagavad Gita confirms that one who is always absorbed in such a way is to be considered the topmost yogi. The real purpose of all processes of transcendental realization, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, is to arrive at a point of devotional service. If one endeavors simply to achieve knowledge of the absolute truth or the Supersoul, but has no devotional service, he labors without gaining the real result. This is compared to beating the husks of wheat after the grains have already been removed. Unless one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be the ultimate goal, it is valueless simply to speculate or perform mystic yoga practice. In the Ashtanga Yoga system, the 7th stage of perfection is dhyana. This dhyana is the 3rd stage in devotional service. There are 9 stages of devotional service. The first is hearing, and then comes chanting, and then contemplating. By executing devotional service, therefore, one automatically becomes an expert jnani and an expert yogi. In other words, jnana and yoga are different preliminary stages of devotional service.
All right, last paragraph. I think
Devahuti was expert in accepting the real substance. She contemplated the form of Vishnu in detail, as advised by her smiling son Kapila Dev. At the same time, she was thinking of Kapila Dev, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore she completely perfected her austerities, penances, and transcendental realization.
All right, Jai. I guess we can read 27. And then once we finish, then we can discuss a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot to cover. Just 6? Yeah.
Situated in eternal trance and freed from illusion, impelled by the modes of material nature, she forgot her material body, just as one forgets his different bodies in a dream.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I guess we can look through again and see what's all happening. So she's meditating on the Lord, and now because she's meditating on the Lord, she's detached from her house, and she's even detached from her body. Srila Prabhupada talked about anartha nivritti, and identification with this body is one of the anarthas. And so she forgot her own body, just as one forgets their bodies in a dream. It's a very amazing point. Next text, please.
Her body was being taken care of by the spiritual damsels created by her husband Kardama. And since she had no mental anxiety at the time, her body did not become thin. She appeared just like a fire surrounded by smoke.
Right. Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about how a person who has no anxieties, they're not very skinny, they're able to put on weight. But a person who's full of anxieties, they become very thin. But Devahuti, she didn't become thin because she was being taken care of. But then this analogy at the end is kind of mysterious. What does it mean that she appeared just like fire surrounded by smoke? Anyone have an idea, a guess, what that means? Yeah, I had no idea either. But any thoughts? Mother Kunti, you can just shout it out. I'll repeat it in the mic. I can just repeat it in the mic, so you don't have to run over.
Spiritual master is completely surcharged with pure love of God. And so he appears as he walks into a room, and we can all feel it, that this is a fire of devotional service. Mm-hmm. And you see the smoke sometimes, is what is around him, or those trying to serve, mm-hmm. You see? Mm-hmm. Or those who also become like fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice. You kind of got it, because Prabhupada talks about how fire, Devahuti herself is pure. She's emanating this spiritual fire. But all around her are these material opulences, and these damsels serving her, and that's compared to smoke. But still, she's unaffected, she's pure, she's like the fire surrounded by smoke. A few more texts.
Because she was always absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she was not aware that sometimes her hair was loosened or her garments were disarrayed.
All right. Again, we're seeing symptoms of, because she forgot her body, she doesn't care anymore about, whether her hair is loose or her garments are like slipping or anything like that. She's just so absorbed in meditation on Kapila Dev. All right, next text.
My dear Vidura, by following the principles instructed by Kapila, Devahuti soon became liberated from material bondage, and she achieved the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Supersoul without difficulty.
Okay, and next text.
The place where Devahuti achieved her perfection, my dear Vidura, is understood to be the most sacred spot. It is known all over the 3 worlds as Siddhapada.
Okay, so in the previous text, Devahuti, she goes back to Godhead, and Prabhupada states, who can guess where Devahuti went? She went to Kapila Dev's Vaikuntha Loka. Which, it's kind of a given. And hopefully that is the result, is that when we focus so much on a particular form of Krishna, or the form of Krishna we are attached to, we're meant to serve, that's where we'll go. So she didn't go to Varaha Loka, she didn't go to Matsya Loka, she went to Kapila Dev's planet. All right, next text.
Dear Vidura, The material elements of her body have melted into water and are now a flowing river, which is the most sacred of all rivers. Anyone who bathes in that river also attains perfection, and therefore all persons who desire perfection go bathe there.
Right, final text.
My dear Vidura, the great sage Kapila, the personality of Godhead, left his father's hermitage with the permission of his mother and went towards the northeast.
Okay, actually, I think we're only supposed to read to 32. 33, what we're going to read tomorrow, is describing Kapila ending the third canto. All right, yeah, what a description, right? What did you guys think of Devahuti's journey back to Godhead? So, what we read a few texts ago was that she was doing these austerities at the river Saraswati, but I'm not sure. The purport didn't really specify what the Devahuti river was, so I'm assuming that because she was doing austerities on the Saraswati river, it's the Saraswati river that her water flowed into. Yeah, Paramita, you have a thought? Okay, Paramita said perhaps even the river metaphorically of her example. Yeah, there's this purport. I remember Sachinandan Maharaj in the Govardhan retreat, he was very much emphasizing this. Let's see. I hope this is the right text. So we're already a little over time, but that's okay. Okay. So Krishna, he's describing his abode in the Bhagavad Gita right now. He describes how his planet is illuminated. It doesn't need the sun or the light. And he's talking here about how he burns away the nescience when one is enlightened. And then Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about how, maybe we can just read the whole purport. Someone like to read it? Melissa or Kaylee?
Those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered, but those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvam Jnana Plavena Yanani Sarva Karmani and Nahi Yanina Sardasam. Knowledge is always highly esteemed, and what is that knowledge? Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna, as is said in the 7th chapter, 19th verse, Vanuman Janamanante Janaman Nam Prapadyate. After passing through many, many births, when one perfect in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him, as everything is revealed by the sun in the daytime. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously thinks himself God, he actually falls into the last snare of nescience. If a living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by nescience? Does God become bewildered by nescience? If so, then nescience or Satan is greater than God. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master and, under him, learn what Krishna consciousness is. For Krishna consciousness will certainly drive away all the nescience, as the sun drives away darkness. Even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not this body, but is transcendental to the body, he still may not be able to discriminate between the soul and the supersoul. However, he can know everything, while if he cares to take shelter of the perfect, bona fide, Krishna-conscious spiritual master. One can know God and one's relationship with God only when one actually meets a representative of God. A representative of God never claims that he is God, although he is paid all the respect ordinarily paid to God because he has knowledge of God. One has to learn the distinction between God and the living entity. Lord Shri Krishna therefore stated in the 2nd chapter that every living being is individual and that the Lord also is individual. They were all individuals in the past, they are individuals at present, and they will continue to be individuals in the future, even after liberation. At night, we see everything as one in the darkness, but in the day, when the sun is up, we see everything in its real identity. Identity with individuality in spiritual life is real knowledge.
All right. So, I'm not sure this was actually the right text, but this text, it's very, it's very on point, I feel, that it's talking about how when we attain this enlightened stage, all this nescience is burned away. It's like the sun rising and getting rid of all the darkness. And we're seeing this example in Devahuti that all her past lives became meaningless, just like a dream. Even her current life, her physical body, she doesn't care anymore. I really like the part that Prabhupada talked about here. Let's see. Yeah, he's making this point that we pass through so many births just to get to this point where we can actually engage in devotional service. You know, after many, many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So we can just meditate on how we have this chance, like Devahuti, after so many births, like infinite births, we can nullify all of it. We can just go back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada, he states, I believe in the text that I was looking for, but he says that we should be captivated by this information of how to go back to Godhead. And we should desire to be transferred to the spiritual world. So yes, we can hear, the nescience is burned away by knowledge and stuff. But if we actually think about it, like all of these material conditionings, all this past built up disturbance and mental pangs of misery and things like that, they're going to be burned up when we meditate on the Supreme Lord. So I'm already quite over time, so I think maybe we can share a few thoughts and then we can read a little bit about Advaita Acharya on his appearance day. Premrita.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for class. It's full of wonderful verses and purports. I had a thought about one thing that it seemed like it was relevant and it came up in the purport and it seems like it's still coming up of getting rid of ignorance versus going towards Krishna, that it's the same thing happening at the same time, but to look at it differently. I was recently listening to a lecture and the devotee was quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was saying that there's anartha nivritti, but once artha pravritti starts, anartha nivritti becomes irrelevant. Not that it's not going.
What's artha pravritti?
Yeah, anartha means unwanted things that we have in our heart. And nivritti means like getting rid of those things. So artha pravritti, actually he didn't say this, but I'm assuming artha pravritti means, artha are the things that we do want in our heart, and pravritti means to gain those things. And so when we start to go towards the things that we do want in our heart, naturally the unwanted things fall away, and that's not even our focus anymore. Our focus is just like, let me chant more, let me hear more. When my envy and whatever, all of that comes up and goes away, then I'm not really focused on that. Yeah. Anyways, I like that.
Thank you. Yeah. It's very on point with this translation that simply focusing on Krishna, we're gaining Brahman realization, like Devahuti, and we're going through anartha nivritti, but we don't have to focus on that. Nandabraj?
Thank you, Drista, and thank you, Prema. Very good point. I was appreciating that this morning we read a Srila Prabhupada quote, and he was speaking about how that the beating of empty husks is worthless. And he mentions it in this purport also. And so, kind of going with Prema's comment, when will we get the understanding that material life is nothing for us? It gives nothing. Unless we're meditating on Krishna, then it's worthless labor. It's like beating the husk of an empty husk. And so, I was just focusing on this, and I think Prema's answered it to a certain degree, that when we become attracted to Krishna consciousness, then we'll automatically give up this worthless labor. But I was wondering if you had any comments on that, what does it take for us to realize that material life has nothing for us?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it yourself already that there's, that when we meditate on Krishna, when we meditate on the Supreme Lord, it's a byproduct that we will lose taste. I believe param drishva nivartate, right? It's like giving up the lower taste to accept the higher taste. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? Gokulananda Prabhu, Krishna Priya, Tulsi Saki? When will we lose this? Okay. Any other final thoughts, comments? Oh, Krishna Priya.
When you were reading the description of Devahuti, of her disheveled hair and kind of completely forgetting the body and focusing on Krishna, Acharya Dev's phrase that he said in his class on Sunday just like popped into my head. We have a headless society, but a disembodied ISKCON. So I was just wondering, how can we kind of see Devahuti's state in light of his comment about, I don't know, just sometimes you see ourselves or devotees, they just seem very, disembodied.
I'm not really sure what that means. Okay.
She's not she's not in her body, using it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Kind of, yeah.
I guess her level is very high,
Mm-hmm.
and so how do you sort of be fully embodied?
Yeah.
Spirituality nowadays is very embodied spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
People want something that feels real and achievable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what her description. It just seems very number one, beyond, but disembodied.
Mm-hmm. I have one thought, but then also if you guys can also share. I was just thinking that Devahuti, she's unique in that she's a renunciate, she's a vanapras, she's living in the forest by a river, and she's living in an ashram doing austerities. But in ISKCON, our purpose is we're a preaching movement, so we can't really be doing those kinds of things where we are disheveled and our hair is everywhere and we're wearing rags and stuff, because we're trying to preach, we're trying to connect with society, we're trying to be practical, work in such a way that we're in this world but not of it. It's described how the Uttama Adhikari, when he wants to preach, he goes down to kind of a Madhyama Adhikari level. So he's making discriminations. He's seeing who's envious, who's favorable, and what works, what's practical in today's age. If that helps. So any other thoughts, Paramrita?
Yeah, I thought of it in terms of varnashram, actually. We're the head because the culture of, the culture that Srila Prabhupada was wanting to establish was very Brahminical culture. Preachers, people that know the philosophy and can teach the philosophy, teachers. And so when he made that statement, to me it sounded like we need to kind of work our way into the society of administrators and all of these things. We need people in the government, and we need that type of thing to work together, to have the body in that way.
So, to your point, that we try to follow Yukta Vairagya, regarding Mataji's question, accept whatever is required for the service of Krishna. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Raghunath Das Goswami initially that you be in the family, don't leave the family yet, but then don't be of the family. Mm-hmm. So try to be a part of society, family. Externally we'll appear as normal people just functioning in a normal society, but the idea is to internally constantly keep developing renunciation and not be attached.
Jai. All right, good. Okay, now we can just quickly read this nice biography of Advaita Acharya. Let's see how long it is. Maybe maybe we can read to here, to the last paragraph here, just that you guys aren't held up forever. All right. Anyone want to read? Narottam?
Can you expand it a little bit? Zoom in, maybe. Yeah. All over the world, the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu are sung. However, without Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu, also known as Gaur Ana Thakur, he who brought Gaura to this world, there would be no Mahaprabhu. Sri Advaita Acharya was the first among the associates of Lord Chaitanya, and he appeared on our earth some 560 years before, some 50 to 60 years before Sri Chaitanya's own advent. Sri Advaita Acharya is recognized as a combined incarnation or expansion of Sri Mahavishnu and Sri Sadashiva, Lord Shiva in Golok Dham. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami quotes the following evidence from the diary of Swarup Damodar to describe the ontological principle of Advaita Acharya. Mahavishnur Jagat Karta Mayayayaha Srijatyada Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara Advaitam Hari Nadadvaitat Acharyam Bhakti Sahasnat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye. Mahavishnu is the master of the universe, which he creates through his power of Maya. Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of his form, of this form of the Supreme Lord. He is known as Advaita because he is none other than Hari, the Supreme, as Acharya because he is the protector of devotion. I take shelter of the Supreme Lord, Advaita Acharya, who is the incarnation of a devotee. When Sri Advaita Acharya manifested in this world, Srila Madhavendra Puri, Sri Ishvara Puri, Sri Sachi Mata and Sri Jagannath Mishra also made their appearances. Sri Advaita Acharya was a disciple of Sri Madhavendra Puri and forms one of the main figures amongst the Panchatattva, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Pandit and Srivas.
Haribol. Sri Advaita Acharya Ki Jai. Please forgive me for any shastric indiscrepancies and for my lack of preparation today. Vanchakalpa Tirubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Devahuti Ki Jai. Kapila Muni Ki Jai. Going back to Godhead Ki Jai.